Welcome back to the homestead, guys. Today we're going to harvest a couple of crops that I've been really looking forward to harvesting, these early spring things, and I will tell you a little bit about each one of them. This, of course, is rhubarb. This particular plant is very large, so that is exciting to see. I bought a couple of these at a farm store, I think a couple of years ago, and then last year, a wonderful lady from church who's known for her rhubarb and her garden overall, she shared a few plants with me, and they're doing amazing. So she gave me a couple of new stalks to plant, and therefore these ones are not as large yet, and I'll give them some additional time to grow too. They might still do well this spring, but if not, then they will for sure next year. Oh, and we're not really out here to talk about blueberry bushes today, but I'm really glad to see that these very small bushes that I bought from a farm store when they were not doing very well, they seem to be doing really well. So it actually might be another couple of years before we get berries on these because of how tiny they are, but it's a good start. And then these taller ones I got from the Amish greenhouse that's near me, so they're doing very well. And these 4 bushes that I have like this are what produced the berries last year. And you see some getting started right there. There, I got it to focus a little bit. So again, rhubarb is one of those early spring plants that comes up and you can harvest, and you kind of need to harvest it now. It won't be going for much longer. It's the end of April, and now is kind of the time to get at it. I didn't even see that. The other very large leaf on the other side. Rhubarb is pretty easy to grow, and it's very cold hardy. Does well here in our northern climate, and it spreads pretty easily. There's one of 2 ways that you can get new rhubarb plants. One, of course, is if you let it go long enough into the season, and some of them will just do this on their own. I don't think they do it every year. But through the center here, there will be a very large stalk. It's more circular instead of that partially square look that the rhubarb stalks have. It'll get very tall. The whole plant will kind of get tall. It'll get taller than the leaves. And on the very end of it, it'll have this like balled up, and I think it's whitish seed pod. It's pretty large, and you can wait until that happens and then harvest a bunch of seeds and start plants from seeds. The only thing though is if you let a plant go that long to that degree, it means it's going to actually kill the plant. The plant itself is dying, so it's all done. So I had a couple like that last year. I really didn't need any new seeds, so I chopped off the stalk when I saw that happening. The other way is, see if I can get in here and show you a little bit. So there's some nice healthy stalks. But you can actually see kind of down here where these are. So not like right where the stalks meet each other, but there, that's a good example. It will start branching off from itself on its own. You can take like a spade or a little trowel and very gently dig that out on its own, separate it and have it make its own new plant, and then it will grow in its own space, larger, healthy, bigger, etc. So it kind of makes little bulbs or nodules off to the side of itself, and then you can dig those up and bury them elsewhere. Obviously, you don't want to just break off a stalk and try to plant that somewhere. That's not going to work on its own. In terms of how to harvest it, I've always heard 2 different main ways to do that for best results of having the plant grow back better the next year and next season, etc. I have done both of these, and neither one of them have hurt the plant in any way. Both of them seem to work, so you can do this however you like. Try it in a couple of different ways if you'd like. So one way is to just get to the bottom where the stalk is, and of course just snap it off. So I just put some pressure on it, twist a little bit. There you go. Okay, and just for reference, let's try to back this up a little bit. There's my hand, and that's how big this leaf is. The stalk itself is actually kind of short, so bummer on that. Normally you want rhubarb to be longer just so that you're getting a better harvest. You can do that, or you can take your handy kitchen knife, come out here, and then just cut it. And, while rhubarb kind of seems like it might be a tough produce to deal with, it's not. So just any kind of normal knife. It slices off nice and cleanly. It's really easy. You're not going to be out here sawing away or working too hard just to harvest it. This one, because it's very close to a brand new one that's growing, I think I will gently do this. I don't want to pull on the plant for that one. That one I could pull, but we'll just do this. Obviously, the skinnier or smaller they are, you want to leave them. You want to wait until they're about this thickness to harvest them, or a little bit thicker is fine as well. So grab this one in the back. It's the only thing about this hardware cloth and plants like rhubarb that kind of like to spread, that does make it a little bit more difficult for them to do. Interesting fact about rhubarb, the leaves are poisonous, which is why we never see those in the grocery store. And it's not something that you can put in a salad, so don't do that. Well, I think I'm gonna have to give these more time because while they look amazing, the leaves certainly look huge. There's not quite enough here for one pie, even though there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 plants that are growing really well. They're just not quite there yet. Okay, and here's another thing I wanted to show you and that I'm going to try and harvest as much of as I can today, and that is red dead nettle. This is something that you see in your yard probably every spring and you just don't even realize what it is, or that it is a beneficial plant for people that is totally edible. Some of the benefits of red dead nettle are reduced inflammation, stabilization of blood sugar levels, and it helps apparently during cold and flu season with kind of the coughing, reduction in mucus, and just kind of calming down some of your symptoms. I did dry some last year and then I was too chicken to try it. And then I just left my herbs hanging, and you really should, after they're fully dried, you should enclose them in some kind of container to preserve the freshness and of course the integrity of the herbs themselves. I did eventually try some very early this spring and it tasted just fine and didn't hurt me, but I do have a lot of food allergies, sensitivity types of things, so I do worry about trying new things, but this didn't bother me at all. I couldn't tell if there were any benefits to it or not in the moment, but I wasn't sick or anything like that when I took it. I could also harvest these or other dandelions around our yard. You can eat, I believe, almost every part of the dandelion plant, but I'm not really there yet in terms of doing things with herbs. Also, I'm no herbalist, so don't take my word for any of this if you have concerns about that. I have done a ton of research on the nettle, though, and you can actually buy nettle tea online and from a lot of retailers. So as far as I know, this one in particular does not have any poisonous plants that look like it. If you think that you can have this in the first place, you're safe to take it. Which actually, I meant to mention earlier, rhubarb does have a poisonous counterpart that, apart from its leaves itself, that you want to be aware of. Now, to me, these really don't look the same, but I can understand that if you haven't gardened before and you don't know what you're looking for, that could look very similar to the rhubarb plants that we were just looking at. But that right there is false rhubarb. That is not the real deal. And that is apparently poisonous to us people. Also, I don't notice any animals eating that either. But some differences I'll point out. The leaves are always very long and slender like this, so they're not that wide heart-shaped leaf that you see. There's just some different consistency in the leaves too. Rhubarb leaves are hardier, thicker looking. These are a little bit thinner, and like you can see the sunshine through them right now. Also, the stalks themselves, this is about how big they'll ever get. So I'm gonna rip one out right now. As compared to the rhubarb, let's do that over here. So as you can see, I've got a rhubarb stalk and leaf and then the false rhubarb. So to me, these look very, very different. So you've got the slender, sickly looking, in my opinion, stalk. It's always very flimsy too. There's like not any strength to it. But obviously you can see the many differences in the leaves. And then the rhubarb stalk will always look like this when it's fully grown. Funny enough, I definitely knew that full well before we bought this property and started making this garden over here, but when we chose this spot for it and we started clearing this area, I could not believe how much false rhubarb is all over the place, but it's fine. It's not going to leach poisons into your soil or something to where you have concerns about growing any food in there. There's tons of weeds out here that are not edible to us, but they're not going to hurt your garden. You just don't want to ingest that intentionally. Here's what they look like on the back, just to show the differences. There you go. This is also another early spring plant, getting back to the red dead nettle, or just sometimes it's called dead nettle, and I think it's also the same or mostly the same as nettle. Anyway, they are all edible, mostly used in herbal teas. You're not going to put them in anything else. Now, the seeds are not good for you, so you don't want to include the seeds. You do want to include the little purple, violet colored flowers that are on them and the leaves themselves. That's what goes in the teas. Discard the stalks and the seeds. These are also another plant that is really only out in the springtime, and then it's going to wither up and kind of die off, or, you know, if it's growing out in the middle of your yard, it's going to get mowed by the lawnmower, that sort of thing. I also don't really see too many wild animals interested in this plant. It is a fantastic aid to pollinators though, so any kind of bees or things like that. I do see a ton of ants crawling all over this particular group that I'm recording right now as well. I know that it's beneficial for insects. These, I certainly did not put the seeds here. This is just what is coming up on this edge of the garden all on its own. This is where I plant, one of the places that I plant potatoes. So that's why it does not have the weed barrier down here. Can't cover the area where you're growing potatoes. So this is just what comes up, and I'm totally fine with it. All of this stuff is kind of good for the soil, good for insects, and there's a few things out of here that I can also get. Last year, I did kind of shake them as I was harvesting the ones that I grabbed last year. And then as I'm processing these in the house, I will save some seeds and then throw them back out here. Again, these are so prolific. They'll grow on their own anywhere. They do a really good job of that. I did read online it's more recommended to harvest them earlier rather than later in the season. I think we're about in the middle of the season for these, so we're good. And it might seem like I'm grabbing tons of them already, but for me, I'm going to try to have like a year's supply of tea. And granted, again, you don't have to have a ton of anything to make a few tea bags, really. But if you think about it again, I'm going to dry these. The flowers and the leaves are certainly going to shrink down. And then we don't need the stalks or the roots, etc. So even though, while it might look like a lot as I'm grabbing these, it's really not. And I know that there are tons of other beneficial things in my yard, as I've noted, but again, everything takes time, and I haven't fully had the time to learn about the herbal side of self-sufficiency, medicines, and doing something like that on the homestead. We got our hands full just with what we're doing right now. So trying to master a few things before moving on to something else. That's always a good rule. So I guess they're sweeter if you get them earlier in the season rather than later. I was going to harvest them over the weekend, and now it's basically almost Thursday again of this particular week that we're in. And it has just continued with the weather. Everyone knows what I'm talking about too. Every time that it's 4:30 or 5 and I'm thinking about wrapping up at my job at the desk, and I'm like, oh, I can go outside and do this, that, and the other, and then it starts raining again. So that has definitely been a thing all spring long this year. It can stop any time, though. I'm sure we're all ready for that. Thanks for coming along with me today, guys, to learn more about rhubarb and red dead nettle and how to harvest them and what to look for. I'm very excited that you joined me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share this video and our channel. That's what helps us grow. Also, stay tuned for the next video where we debut another homestead animal that we just picked up today. We'll see you next time.